The 2021 Virtual Business Conference, February 12th. Candace Kaufman. Marketing Beyond Programs.
Candace Kaufman is the Director of Marketing for USTA North Carolina. She has been in her role since April of 2019. She has expertise in marketing and has worked with a vast array of companies, including the NBA, the NFL, and all across sports. She's a terrific presenter. She's presented for USTA and just as an expert in marketing. So we're excited to have you, Candace.
Great, thanks for having me. So before I start, I'll give everybody a little bit of my background and how I ended up in tennis. I originally went to school, double major for marketing and graphic design. I've been in just about every industry out there, all kinds of sports companies, different products. One company I went to work for manufactured snacks and body care, and they sent me back to school to get a master's in holistic nutrition to develop snacks. I've worked with supermarkets, a little bit of everything. And I tell people I have seen and done it all in my career. I've had great failures and I've had great successes, and everything along the way. I've really learned about grassroots marketing, and that's kind of my specialty. And I think grassroots marketing is what people are kind of getting back to now. Even though we have technology and things in front of us, it's the grassroots type of marketing that really connects with people. And so for years, I've been teaching marketing classes. I've had grants from the FDA. I used to go out and teach marketing to farmers and food startups across North Carolina. And I continue to teach classes and consult outside of my job. But 2 years ago, I joined the North Carolina Tennis Association as their director of marketing. And I think I'm the first non-tennis person that they've ever hired. I do have a little bit of a tennis background. I played intramural tennis in college, and I go out on the courts with friends from time to time, but I am not a true tennis player. I really fell in love with tennis when I was working with a company called Blue Lizard Australian Sunscreen. And as part of their marketing initiative, I needed to go out and get awareness of the brand so that we could get contracts and get into major retailers. And I started looking at outdoor sports events and connected with the WTA and became the official sunscreen of some Major League Baseball. We were the official sunscreen of the Yankees and Cubs and the WTA. So for 2 years, I traveled around with the WTA and had Blue Lizard marketing events at all of their tennis events, and really fell in love with tennis. And that is one of the only sports that I really watch on television or follow or have anything to do with. So when I came to North Carolina tennis, it just made sense to work with these guys and really think about things outside of the box. And I think that's kind of what my specialty has been. No matter where I go and where I've worked, whether you're selling a product or a physical product, or it's something like tennis, marketing relates, and it's the same across the board. So one of the things I came to understand as I was teaching marketing and working for companies is that you really have to understand and know the difference between marketing, branding, and branding. If you don't know what your branding is, you can never create a successful marketing campaign. So whether you're a tennis organization or you teach tennis, you're a pro, or you own a club, you really have to know what you're about and who your audience is before you can create any kind of successful marketing campaign. Years ago, I found this article by James Heaton, and it just really, I think, helped people understand and connect what the difference between the two are. And so in the article, he talks about, to make you understand the difference between marketing and branding, when you understand what your branding is, this is what encourages someone to come to your product, to your event. It's how they feel about what you're offering overall. Marketing brings people in the door. It's the flyer, it's the event, it's the things you do to promote what you're doing that bring people in the door. But it's your branding, that's what you're about, that keeps people loyal and makes them a fan for the rest of their life. So if you are in the tennis community, like I said, whether you're an organization, a club, or someone who's teaching, you have to understand what you're about and what you want people to see that you're about before you can make a successful campaign and keep them playing tennis. Give me 1 second here. I have to move my Zoom. There we go, so I can see the screen. So your brand encourages someone to buy the product. It directly supports whatever sales or activities you have in play. The brand doesn't explicitly say buy me or try me. Instead, it says this is what I am. It's why I exist. And if you agree and support me, then maybe you'll recommend me to your friends. It's what remains after the marketing has swept through the room. And what I tell people is, this guy breaks it down great with talking about a Toyota dealership. So you may get something in the mail, or you may see a TV commercial or something from Toyota that gets you into the showroom to look at a car. But it's your experience from the minute you walk into the door to the people you interact with, to the messages that they have, that makes you a Toyota buyer for life. And that's what you have to understand with your job or anything that you're doing. Figure out what your brand is and how you communicate that to your customers. Your marketing, it unearths and activates the buyers, but your branding is what makes people loyal. It makes them want to continue with the tennis experience they just had with you. It makes tennis more enjoyable to them, and it makes them could make them a tennis player for life if you have the branding that welcomes them and makes them feel good about everything that they have done that you're doing. So what is your brand? Well, your sport is playing tennis, and your brand is, it's a lifetime sport that can be played and enjoyed by people of any age, of every ability. And whether you're picking up a tennis racket for the first time or you've played the game for years, you'll find that tennis, it's a sport that whose bounty of benefits is unmatched by any other sport or activity. That's one of the most amazing things that I've seen since coming into the North Carolina Tennis Organization, is really learning about tennis. And it truly is, I tell people, one of the only sports you can play that not only physically, but mentally makes you healthy. When you're out there on the court, you can't think about anything else but that ball coming at you and anticipating your opponent's the next move. So you don't think about everything else. So it gives you that mental break that some of the other sports and activities don't give you. It's a sport that can add years to your life. And when you find yourself in the game, you can find that you're a happier and in a healthier place. So some of the things that you're marketing when you're selling what you're doing in tennis, it could be a healthier lifestyle. It could be, the tournaments. It's a fun sport, a great way to meet friends. I mean, you're always out there marketing leagues, the fitness aspect, again, the mental break from life, and the social interaction, and the list goes on and on. So depending on what you're doing in your line of work, whether you're a pro or an organization, you have different audience at different age levels, and everybody has something different that appeals to them within the sport. So some of the key selling points, once you figure out what you're branding and really what you're about, are the health benefits. There's going to be people out there who are drawn to tennis because you can point out the number of calories they burn, how healthy it is, that you live longer. The mental benefits, again, I think this is one that's really missed, is the mental benefits that you get from playing tennis. And then the social benefits. Every program that we have, as I've gone out into the community and talked to people and in different organizations, everybody just goes on and on about the friendships and the people that they met through tennis and how it changed their life. So there's a very good marketing aspect to the social benefits of playing this sport. You can put together the best marketing campaign and everything, but if you don't have know what you're about and attract the people that you need to target in your marketing, then it's going to be all a waste of effort. So once you figure out your branding and it's time to do your marketing, you have to start asking yourself the right questions. And marketing involves a lot of different areas. It's advertising, it's customer relations, it's promotions, it's everything that people are going to experience from the time they get a flyer about your program to actually stepping on the court and participating. So you have to start asking the right questions when you're putting together a marketing plan. Who are your local tennis players? Who are your potential players? Where do they live? Are you offering the right kinds and programs of services that these people want? Even look at, like our last guest speaker was talking about, pickleball. How does it compete with tennis? You know, how can you incorporate that into what you're doing? So once you know your branding and you're ready to, again, to create your effective marketing campaign, the number one thing you have to understand is your audience. And we have them divided into groups. And the one that most people know about are called the baby boomers. If you are doing programs or marketing to baby boomers, 65% of adults aged 50 to 64, they use social networking sites. They engage in Facebook to revive dormant relationships. And your boomers are the most likely to misunderstand Facebook marketing ads, but they look at their news feeds and they're receptive to direct marketing and sales tactics, and they like to talk to real people. So if this is the age group that you are targeting, there are very specific things that you need to do to reach this audience versus your next group of people, who is your Generation X. These are your people who were born between 65 and 76. They're dealing with children, they're paying mortgages and tuition, and they work a lot. They're also online, and more than 80% of this generation reports that they're on Facebook and Twitter. They're more likely to use technology like millennials, and they're very likely to be politically loyal throughout most of their lives on either one side or the other. If you're doing a marketing campaign and this is your ideal audience, then we're going to talk about here in a few minutes. There are some very specific things and ways that you need to market to this generation that you wouldn't to the baby boomers or the millennials. And then your third category, your post-millennials and your Generation Z. This group is slowly taking over the baby boomers. At one point, baby boomers, there were more baby boomers than any other generation, but your millennials are now taking that over. They are truly reshaping the way that goods and services are being marketed, and they're kind of unresponsive to traditional marketing tactics. This is the generation that decides where they're going to eat based on an Instagram picture. They choose their hairstyles from Facebook, and they have all of their groceries delivered to their door. They're a whole different technology generation. Once you understand who your audience is and who you're going after for your programs, you need to figure out what apps and what media they use. Age is the most important demographic that distinguishes the difference between doing a Facebook and an Instagram campaign. Millennials use both platforms, but if you're really going after a younger audience, then you need to look at doing campaigns on Instagram versus Facebook, because you're going to reach more people in that group. They've shown that primary research reveals that despite more than 80% of high school students having a Facebook account, they use Instagram daily. So if you're doing a youth program or targeting younger people, again, you're going to want to look at Instagram versus Facebook to really drive home some of your messages and get in touch with the people that you want. One of the biggest questions that come up in a lot of the marketing classes that I teach, people don't quite understand when they're in Facebook, the difference between posting and boosting a post and doing an ad on Facebook. When you post something to your page, you have people who like and follow you. So when you post, they see that. And when you boost that post, you are making it pop up in front of the people that already know about you. If you're out in the marketplace and you're trying to get new customers, new tennis people, then you really need to concentrate on doing Facebook ads. They're like supercharged boosted posts, but they let you really fine tune and find the audience that you're exactly looking for. You can target by gender, by age, location, all kinds of different ways. But Facebook ads are going to bring in people that don't know about you or your product, whereas your post and boost are just going out there to people who already know about you. when you go in to do a Facebook ad, and you can target by location. You can target users based on a certain country, a zip code, a city, or a region. You can target by age, again, to really fine tune and tap into the audience that you're looking for. If you find over time that you have a greater appeal towards women than men, you can do ads by gender, language, demographics, interests, behaviors. There's all kinds of exclusionary targeting that you can do. A good example of this is I worked with one of our facilities who was looking to target, they really wanted to get mom groups in, and they didn't quite know how to do it. So moms are very active on Facebook, and I helped them put together a campaign. And when they did some ads, they really drilled into, they did it by gender, so it was women. We did it by zip code within their area. And then we looked at interest. And we told Facebook to only run the ads on women during a certain age that had kids and were interested in children's programs. We even used sports, kids sports as one of the filters. And so it allowed them to really go out there and place ads and be more cost effective, because their ads are only popping up in front of the people that they're trying to reach. And it was very effective. They got a lot of women who were stay-at-home moms who had kids in programs, half-day preschool programs, and they learned to target some of their tennis programs to have sessions during the morning and did a whole campaign about Mother's Day out. So Facebook targeted ads really helped with something like that. Whereas if they had just done an ad or a post and threw it out there, they weren't really engaging in getting the people that they needed to. Instagram is a little bit different. I tell people to think of Instagram as a lifestyle magazine. It's telling your story through pictures. And this is why younger people tend to connect with it a lot more. They recommend that if you're going after that younger audience, that you do post about twice a week. Instagram is a much slower pace than sites like Facebook and Twitter. It's a little different message that you're trying to communicate. But I feel like Instagram allows you to tell a story through pictures, and you get that emotional connection if you do it right. So Instagram can be a very good way to really think outside the box and get and capture new people that you've never had interested in your products or services before. One of the best examples that I can give about Instagram is that a few years ago, Anthropologie had a corporate party. If you don't know what Anthropologie is, it is like a lifestyle. It started out as more clothing, but now they've ventured into home goods and things like that. They had a company party, and one of their interns took a picture of a dog at the picnic and posted it on Instagram. It was Anthropologie's most liked Instagram post, and still is to this day. And it was just a random dog at a company picnic. It had nothing to do with their product, their company, anything that they were doing. But it taught them a lesson that maybe we need to have a little more fun stuff in the message that we're communicating. And it's not all business and pushing and selling all the time. We need to bring in a little fun to capture people and bring them in. Again, they made that emotional connection, because who doesn't look at a picture that pops up on their screen of a dog and say, oh, isn't that cute? And continue to dig in and look a little further. To give you a couple of examples of thinking outside the box, and again, I tell people marketing and advertising doesn't have to cost a lot of money. If you can connect with someone somehow emotionally and tell your story, it's going to gain their interest. So one of the things that we do a lot at NC Tennis, we work a lot with local media and push out a lot of press releases about things we have going on in the community. And a lot of times it's not necessarily about tennis. Some of them are about feel-good stories and things that we're doing in the community. And we have 3 really good examples of things that we've done in 2020 that really got us some major headway and got us in the media. And the first one was with an organization called Will Serve North Carolina. They were our newest CTA, and they work with athletes with physical disabilities in the sport of tennis. So we have this new CTA. We sent out a press release, and we called a couple of local news stations to tell them about Will Serve and what they were doing and what's going on in the community. And one of the TV stations said they'd love to do a story. They came out live on air one morning to the courts, did a big story on Will Serve. And from there, it just started to spread. Local media started picking it up. They started getting phone calls from people. And that was simply from sending out a press release and just following up and contacting the people at all the different media that we had sent it to. When COVID first hit, one of the things that we were looking for at North Carolina Tennis was to get hand sanitizer to have at all the events and things that we were going to. And I started calling out there and doing research, and it was really hard to find anybody who had any hand sanitizer at all. And at this point, all the local distilleries had gotten federal approval to start making sanitizer from their alcohol. And I called, just got a list off the internet, started calling manufacturers, and we wanted individual bottles that we could give people to take, but then larger bottles as well to set up at events. And no one could fulfill an order because they could not find the packaging to make little 1 or 2 ounce bottles. They had been wiped out, and I kept calling, and finally I got hold of a little brewery in Chapel Hill. It was a restaurant and brewery called Top of the Hill, and they were making sanitizer. And I called them and told them what we were looking for, and we were, looking to purchase several thousand bottles of it. And is there anything they could do to help us out? And they said, we would love to help you. If you can help us find the packaging, the bottles, the lids, we are happy to fulfill it by hand, do what you need. This could help keep our doors open for 2 more weeks because North Carolina was not at that time allowing restaurants to open. So they had shut down their restaurant, and they were making sanitizer to try to stay afloat. So working with them allowed them to stay open for 2 more weeks, pay their employees, and they were able to eventually open the restaurant back up. So when we did our press release, we told the story about how we partnered with a local organization and told the story about how we helped keep their employees, their company afloat, and they were able to pay their employees until they could get back in business. Media picked this up. We ran with it. We got some great stories about it, and it really didn't have anything to do with tennis. The whole angle for this was how we partnered with a local organization to bring hand sanitizer to the tennis community. And then another really, the third, and I think was one of the best examples, successes we've had this year of some grassroots marketing, was in the Lake Norman area. There is a huge neighborhood that had tennis courts. And the CTA there approached them about bringing our Try Tennis program into their community, and we would start with a kids program. So they agreed to let them teach a youth program there. And it seemed like every parent, once the word got out through the homeowners association, every parent in the neighborhood was signing up their kids, because you've had a whole period of COVID where people had been stuck at home with their kids, and they were looking for any opportunity to get their kids engaged in something and outdoors. And here was this opportunity right in their backyard in the tennis courts in their neighborhood. So we approached a couple of different media. The local newspaper ran a story on it, and they got so much interest in tennis from that one newspaper story that they now have an adult program going on there. They're working on doing a family tennis program, and they're lining up more youth programs. Well, they got other neighborhoods starting to call saying, hey, we have tennis courts too. How do we get involved and bring this kind of thing to our neighborhood as well? And all of this came from simply sending out a press release and picking up the phone and calling media and telling them about what we had going on in the area. All 3 of these examples didn't cost, all the marketing on the advertising and exposure we got from it didn't cost us a dime other than our time of putting together a press release and sending it out to the community. So our storytelling became our best marketing opportunity. And from that, we did web stories. We were able to do social media content about the media coverage we've gotten. We started to get community engagement. We developed contacts with media and got more press opportunities out of it as well. So don't think that anything that you're doing, if you are, let's say if you're a facility or a pro in the area and you're offering programs, maybe there's some interesting story or something that's come out of one of your programs. If you're a pro and you've been teaching for a couple of years, maybe you've had one kid or somebody who come through your program that all of a sudden, they've never played tennis before. They took lessons from you and now they're playing in a league, and then their league becomes a they're the champions of a tournament. And all of a sudden you've got a human interest story of somebody who had never played tennis, picked up a racket, and then within a year, created a league, became a captain of a league or something and won. And you've got a really good human interest story that people can connect with. And if you get that person to do a story with you, then when they tell about their experience, it relates to others. And then all of a sudden you have someone who's out there saying how tennis changed their life and the friendships that they made from joining the league or things like that. And that is invaluable. That is some of the best marketing and advertising opportunities that you have. I tell people it's called the power of 3. If you can connect with someone and they really like what they've done with you, they're going to tell 3 people. They've determined that everyone in their life has 3 very close people or friends that they tell about bad experiences, good experiences, things that they've discovered, if they ate in a great restaurant, had a great meal. And so they tell these 3 people, and then those 3 people are more likely to go and try it. And then they tell 3 people. And so it grows exponentially. So I tell everybody the power of 3 has incredible power. And it all goes back to your branding and your marketing. Once you get them in the door with your flyer or your programs, it's the experience from the minute they walk in the door till they leave that makes them a fan and makes them a tennis player for life and makes them enthusiastic about it and tell other people. And that is free marketing that you cannot pay for. Thinking outside of the box. So people come and they often say, well, when I meet with some of the CTAs and stuff, well, we have a very minimal budget. We can't afford to spend constantly $200 on Facebook ads or to do this or to do that. If you really want to fine tune some of your marketing messages, there's some really creative things you can do that people don't think about. And one of them is direct mail. I tell people, don't forget about old school tactics. You can go out there and buy mailing lists by zip code. They're really cheap. It costs 24 cents to mail a postcard. So if you really wanted to target a community or a very specific area near something that you're doing, you can buy that mailing list, and 1,000 postcards would cost you about $500 to get the product, to buy the mailing list, and to mail them out. And somebody getting something in the mail about something that's just down the road from them is more effective than sometimes than seeing a Facebook ad. It's something tangible. It has the information. It's right there in front of them. It feels more personal, and it came into their mailbox. So that is a really cheap, effective thinking outside of the box marketing tactic that you can use. Local events, fairs, and festivals. This is the one thing, and I know it's really hard right now in COVID, but hopefully pretty soon we're going to be able to get back out into the community and be around people. And this is the most effective way to get your message across and let people know what you're doing. When you have that personal connection, when you are enthusiastic about something, that translates to other people and they pick up on that. So anytime you can get in front of somebody personally, you are more likely to convince them to try your program, to take a lesson, to join your organization. And it's unlimited the things out in your community that you can do. There are local festivals. Don't forget about health fairs. So many companies and organizations have health benefits or opportunities that they give to their employees, and a lot of them will pay employees or reimburse them for any kind of healthy event that they do. So taking a tennis lesson or participating in some sort of tennis programming, their company might reimburse them. So don't forget about doing things within companies and going to like HR events and getting in front of the people that communicate that message back to their employees. Any kind of community event. Is there something going on in your neighborhood? Church bazaars, networking events. One of the best things that I have ever done, and I've done this with many jobs that I've had over the years, is tapping into Rotary organizations. Every single state, every city pretty much has a Rotary Club, and they are a service organization that have every week they have guest speakers. And right now I'm currently reaching out to all the Rotary clubs in North Carolina to go in to tell them about our Try Tennis program and sponsorships and things that we do. But they all welcome any guest speaker, any topic, and all of the people that are in Rotary clubs, they are business owners, business people. So they're going to take your information and they may go back and share it with their employees, and they're going to tell their friends and family about it. It's a great free way to get in front of your community and really connect with the business people in your area. Set up in the lobby of a business at lunch. Years ago, I had a company and I was working with a company, and there was BB&T was downtown Winston-Salem. Huge building, thousands of employees, and they all came through that lobby. And I connected with their HR, and they let me set up a booth in the lobby for, I think it was like 3 days. And people could come by and they got samples of the product, and I would talk to them about the sunscreen and different things. And it didn't cost me, they let me set up for free. It didn't cost me a dime. And I was able to connect with, thousands of people in one spot. Tents at parks on the weekend. Think about other sports. If you may be teaching tennis to youth, well, where else are youth and their parents? Parents have lots of downtime on soccer fields at soccer tournaments. Think outside the box. How great would it be to have a booth right outside of a soccer tournament with set up a little net and have rackets and have families come over between their breaks and play tennis and give them information about your that you teach tennis or they're a local CTA or anything like that. So again, think outside the box and connect, and how you can connect with the people that you are trying to capture. And don't forget about your old school advertising. Signs, banners, flyers, they really do work. When I first came into North Carolina Tennis Association, I needed to look at what we were doing out in the community and with our Try Tennis program, and how did people find out about the program and sign up. We had a CTA in the Greenville area who was fairly new, and they were interested in getting the Try Tennis program up and running. And if you don't know, our Try Tennis program, it's for $40, you get 6 hours of instruction. Some do an hour and a half, 4 1.5 hour lessons, and some of them do 6 1-hour sessions. But we come up with the tagline, go from couch to court in 6 hours. And it's just a beginner program to get you familiar with tennis. We give you a racket and a t-shirt, and we teach you all the basics of how to hold the racket, to hit a ball, and to keep score. So I went down to Greenville and did a test. I ran billboards. We put up banners throughout the town. We put yard signs everywhere. And we went in every business that we could that would take flyers to either hang up on a community bulletin board or hang up in their kitchen area or somewhere, or pass out to their employees through HR. For 3 days, we blanketed the town. There was not one coffee shop that you walked in that didn't have these flyers with the tear-off tags on their bulletin boards. We had brochures printed. We walked into doctors' offices and said, can we leave these on the table for people in your waiting area? We had a person walk through the hospital And at every single waiting room of the hospital, they left brochures about Try Tennis on the tables with the magazines. Because when someone's sitting in a hospital, they're bored, they're sitting there, they're going to pick up and read and look at anything they can. So we blanketed the whole town with everything that we could possibly think of that would capture someone's attention. And it worked. We had people signing up for Try Tennis. We filled every single session. We got, and when they started, they were only doing adult programs, and they had so much interest from adults saying, do you have anything for kids, that they ended up adding junior programs to it. As they took these classes, we gave them a survey to fill out, and it said, how did you find out about Try Tennis and what made you sign up? Every single survey that came back, they saw a flyer, a banner, or a yard sign before they signed up. More than 70% of the people saw a billboard, and less than half of the people saw a Facebook ad or some sort of other online social media advertising. So from that, we learned really quick that it was very important to get this repetitive advertising that they see day in and day out on the bulletin boards when they get their coffee, the banners when they're sitting at a stop sign, the yard sign when they drive through their neighborhood and someone has it in their front yard. We found that this was the most effective way to communicate to people, and it was one of the cheapest ways of all the marketing that was out there. We've supplied all of our CTAs with yard signs and banners, and they use them, from year to year. Other things that you can do to get creative with your marketing. Don't forget about your hashtags. Your younger viewers out there, really follow up with this. Create new and unique hashtags for things that you're doing. One of the fun things that we like to do sometimes in our social media, and I tell people, every day there's something out there. And there's a calendar out there that's called Holiday Insights. And you can click on a month and a day, and it will tell you everything that's out there. Like today may be National Donut Day. How do you do a post and tie donuts into something that you're doing? Sometimes you can find out the history about something and tie that into what you're doing. A lot of did you know, and it doesn't always have to be tennis or related. It can be fun little things to keep your followers interested and engaged. A great one would be there's one day that it was National Cleanup Day. Incorporate that into your community. And I'll, put together and do a post about going out to a public park and cleaning up the area around the tennis courts. So there's a lot of fun stuff like that you can tie into your marketing message as well. Photo caption contests. People love looking at pictures and stuff online. And if you could have a really funny picture posted and offer a contest, something, caption this. Another example of something that I've done in the past, I've had two people, it was a really funny thing, and the caption was, what friend in your life does this remind you of? And it made people comment below, and they were tagging their friends. So all of a sudden we had people who had never heard about us or our product tagging friends, and then they started liking our page. And it was all from doing one fun little photo contest. Emojis in your posts, that is a really new thing. They make all of these fun little emojis that you can use instead of words. The only caution I tell people with doing that is that if you're really trying to build an audience and get people to your website or something like that, be careful how many emojis you use, because Google does scan for words. And if you use emojis instead of words, you're not going to get that, that filter when somebody is searching. If instead of you saying, did you have fun at an event, and you use the thumbs up instead of communicating that, Google's not going to pick those words up, and you're not going to come up in that search. But they still can be fun to use. So no matter what you do, whether you're, like I said, whether you're a pro, an organization, a country club, a public parks and rec, a facility, there are three key things that you need to know when you're creating a marketing campaign. And the first thing is you have to know who your audience, your target audience is. You have to understand who they are, what they like, where they look for information, You have to develop a profile of your prototypical customer that includes their demographics, from everything from their age to their geographic location, and their psychographics, such as what type of music do they enjoy, what type of things do they do for fun. The more specific and the more detailed your customer profile is, the better you'll be able to be to identify the avenues to reach this particular audience. And then once you know who your audience is, you have to craft the most effective content. You really have to do your homework so that you know what types of language and music and cultural references they're most likely to get an actionable response from. Don't be afraid to use humor and be a little bit edgy sometimes in your content and the things that you're doing, especially if you're trying to appeal to an irreverent crowd. And then the third, and I think what is the most important thing of all when you're doing creating marketing campaigns or doing any kind of marketing, is creating that emotional connection with your consumer. People are much more willing to share your content if they relate to it emotionally. If you can become a very skilled at storytelling, you're going to generate empathy, and that's going to move people into action. Pictures and videos can create a stronger emotional connection than words ever can. And that is it for my presentation. So that's just a condensed little version of kind of thinking outside the box and, marketing beyond your programs. Again, you can be the best teaching pro, you can be the best organization, you can have the best club in the world. But if you don't know how to connect and with your audience and connect with new people that you want to bring in, you're going to waste your money and your time putting together marketing campaigns if you haven't drilled in to figure out all these little things. Know who your brand, know what your brand is, know what you're about, know what you want that experience to be from the first time somebody learns about you to they participate into a program, to fine-tuning the final marketing campaign that you do out there to get them in the door.
Wow, Candace, that was awesome. You, I think you killed us. That was a lot of information, and now it's that was pretty amazing. What? And already some people saying thanks and fantastic and hand claps and everything. Do you have? And I know Kevin always has a question or two, but my first one to you. I don't see any on the chat, but do you have out of this one or two? I know you just put up your 3 key things, so maybe that's it right there. But I was going to say, well, somebody that really needs to try to get going, what is their first step? I mean, that's always the hard part. It's like I just heard so much stuff. Where do you start? So,
where do you start? So, trying to think of an example. Okay, so let's say that you're a teaching pro. And you're trying to get clients and people to come into the facility that you're working at to take lessons. First, you got to identify, okay, who am I trying to capture? Who is my audience? Who do I want to get? How much of a budget do I have to put together? What is your end objective? Do you just want somebody to come in the door, teach them a couple of lessons, or do you want to have somebody that continues to stay with you throughout, as they learn to love tennis, and you want them to keep taking lessons from you from the time they're a beginner all the way up to experience? Do you want them to join your organization? Do you want them to join a local league? So once you figure that out, who you're trying to connect with and what your end objective is, then you can start to put together how you get in touch with those people. So, and kind of putting down on paper what your objective is, what you want out of the end result, who your audience is, and then what your total budget is to go out there and connect with these people. So as you go through your plan and you figure all this out, and let's say you have $500. All right, well, how am I going to get the most bang for my buck to connect with these people? Create a Facebook page, create a group, start looking at your audience there. What things can you do to get people engaged and interested for free? Maybe you spend a small part of that budget on running some Facebook ads. Or maybe you have the opportunity to go out into the community and if you're very limited with your dollars, this is where you would go out and connect with those Rotary clubs and go in and speak and say, look, I'm a I teach tennis lessons at such and such, and I've got a new program, and here's all the information. And then really tap into telling about the healthy benefits of tennis and why, not only are you going to be healthier, but taking that mental break, things like that.
That's awesome. I'll tell you the one thing that I came away with was, and I wrote it down and underlined it, was do your homework. I mean, you've said it over and over again that and I can see why marketing has failed in the past, because I don't think we studied enough of exactly where were we trying to go and were we marketing in the right way. So that was a huge message that I could see was got to do your homework, got to know where you're going. And then as you put on this first slide here, on this last slide, know your target audience is that's pretty huge. So yes, that was good.
If you're teaching a program or doing something and you're going after somebody like me, or you're going after somebody like my 23-year-old daughter, the way that you're going to approach the message to my daughter is going to be totally different from me. So yes. If you don't know who your audience is, you're not going to create the most effective campaign, but you're not going to drill down and reach them in the way that they need to be reached, because the message I would put out to reach my daughter is a totally different platform than what I would go to reach out, someone like me.
It's a little bit of the problem of why we have workshops and conferences, and we tend to still get our older crew and not as much from the younger bunch. I would say that we don't market it correctly, and we probably aren't offering the right education. Maybe they want 20-minute, 25-minute programs instead of 1 hour. I mean, there's a lot of things that reasons that we miss, but once again, you got 50 and 60 and 70-year-olds trying to figure out what's going to happen there. So it's kind of the same thing right there.
Yep. And that's interesting. One of the things I tell people, everything is evolving and changing. And even though we have all this incredible technology at our hands, I don't subscribe to cable service. I only have internet. I subscribe to Hulu, but I pay for the premium service where I don't watch ads. So you've got a whole generation out there, TV commercials, radio advertising, because people sign up for Spotify and music services and they pay for the premium programs without the ads. So your traditional advertising of commercials and radio and things like that, I feel like are moving away and a thing of the past. I would spend more money doing billboard, which they have made very cost effective now, because the digital billboards, you can go out in some of these and set your own budget, and you can say, I have $100 a week and I only want my ad to show on your billboards between 4 and 6 p.m. during rush hour. And you can fine tune that and spend the amount you want. The impressions that somebody gets driving by a billboard and seeing your ad every single day for a month, that's going to connect with somebody more than sitting at home where they only see 1 or 2 commercials over a period. So again, going back to your grassroots advertising, a yard sign and a banner at a stop sign that somebody sees every day on their way to work, that's cheap and that's more effective, and it's going to get that message in their head. So then when they're sitting at work playing on Facebook and all of a sudden an ad pops up for what they've been seeing at the stoplight, then it connects with them and then it resonates. They've seen that message day after day. Now they've got something in front of them that makes them act. So again, think about your grassroots marketing. It really works. It's very effective and it's very cheap to do. You don't have to do commercials and spend a lot of money that way in doing radio ads and stuff to connect with your consumers.
Awesome. Kevin?
Candace, that was terrific. I have a couple of questions. Imagine a scenario where you have 2 tennis facilities. At facility A, they apply the principles of grassroots marketing that you've outlined today, and they don't pay any attention to their brand. At facility B, they take the time to figure out what their brand is, what they want it to be, and they also apply the marketing principles that you described. How is facility B better than facility A, or what will their outcome be different, if any?
They're going to have facility B is going to have more loyal consumers because they've thought about their branding and their experience from the minute somebody walks into the door to they finish a program. If they've involved their staff and they have every aspect of your experience planned out and thought about than just another club that's out there just throwing up marketing to get people in the doors. And if they don't follow through and have that experience, they're going to eventually lose people. So thinking out your whole branding and incorporating that experience you want somebody to have from every aspect that a person touches, that's going to make them more loyal. They're more likely to tell friends and family and get more people involved, where somebody that just walks into the door to do a program and they don't have that connection and they don't have all those other experiences, then they may not come back. And a very good example of that, we have a facility in Raleigh that started using our Try Tennis program, and they had one of the largest sessions ever. They had 100, I think it was like 119 people sign up. They had a pre-party, and they invited all of these people for their facility to pick up their rackets and their t-shirts to learn about the program. Then they gave them a tour of the facility, and they said, hey, while you're here, you're going to be doing this for 1 hour a week for 6 weeks. You can bring your family while you're playing. They can use our pool. You're going to give you a 1-month pass while you're playing Try Tennis. Their membership went through the roof. They are at the point now they can no longer, they are completely full and they can accept no more members. They just don't have the room. And a big part of that came from the Try Tennis program. They were spending a little bit of money to go out in the community to do some festivals and some things to connect with people. And their money, that little bit of grassroots advertising and thinking about their branding paid off, because when it was all said and done, and they did several sessions, they had a couple hundred people come through the Try Tennis program. They had more than 60% of the people that completed the program join their facility and sign a membership. So, you know, they spent a couple of $1,000s doing different things and printing banners and signs and training their staff, but it paid off because I think they brought in over $200,000 just from the memberships they got from the Try Tennis program. So it's very, very important that you think about your branding and that every part of your business or organization knows the experience and knows what you're about, so that you can convey that all the way through to your customer.
Okay, here's a follow-up question to that. We've all seen signs outside restaurants under new management. Mm-hmm. And typically, I mean, for me, that's not very compelling. I'm a little nervous about going to back to that restaurant, because they have a brand that it has a sort of legacy to it that I know what to expect. So in tennis, you know, we're not very often in a position where we're brand new. So people have come to expect certain things. And so we have a brand, whether we like it or not. So if a pro or a facility wants to change their brand, enhance it, something like that, what sort of steps do they need to take, and what kind of time frame should they expect to implement that before they really see results?
So I tell people, no matter how successful you are at what you're doing, you every year need to step back and take a look at what you're doing and what your brand message is. You're always going to need to fine tune it or change it to adapt to times and things that are happening. COVID is a very good example of that. That is, you know, thrown a wrench into so many different organizations and the way people operate and things. So every year you should take a step back, look at your branding, what you're trying to communicate to people, how it's working, and how you need to shift and change that message. Let's say that you're in a facility and you're primarily been teaching to adults. Now you're starting to see an interest in younger people coming in. That's a huge shift that you need to make and start marketing and doing things to get the younger people in. It's not going to happen overnight, but if you know your branding and you know your budget and you know, again, it all boils down, I think, to who your target audience is. If you can fine tune who that audience is and what you're your end results are, then you can create a more effective marketing campaign. And depending on what you're doing, your results, you know, it's going to take a couple of months. It just varies on what you're trying to do, but, you know, give everything a couple of months to kick in. And sometimes if it's a bigger overall thing, it could take a year to kick in. One of the things I tell, I've always had a hard problem going into corporations and big companies. And most of the time I've been dealing with tangible products, and they're like, here's $4 million. We want our products on the shelves of Target. We need you to make that happen within a year. Well, it doesn't happen like that. And I'm like, all right, I'm going to go spend $4 million, but you're not going to see a return on that investment for probably 2 years, because what I'm doing is spending money and getting advertising and getting this message and making people aware of your product so that the next time they walk into the store, they're like, oh yeah, that's that sunscreen, or that's that socks, or that's that snack food that I read about or that I saw. Maybe I'm going to try that. So you have to invest in building that awareness, and sometimes the payoff takes a little bit down the road.
All right, terrific. Thank you.